Welcome back to the English Coffee Talk Show. I'm Eva, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host James, and we are so happy you're here with us today.
Hey everyone, super glad to be here. Eva, can I just say, you look like you've already had about 4 coffees this morning.
Only 3, thank you very much. Okay, so I have to tell you what happened to me this morning because it was honestly a whole adventure before I even got here.
Oh no, what happened?
Okay, so I stopped at my usual coffee shop, right? The one on the corner near the studio, and I ordered, as I always do, a medium oat milk latte. Simple, easy, a classic. And the barista, bless her heart, she goes, "Name," and I say, "Eva," and she writes it down. No problem.
Okay, sounds normal so far.
Right. So then 5 minutes later, she calls out, "Order for Eva?" And I'm just standing there like, wait, is that me? Is there an Eva here? And then she calls it again, "Eva, Eva with a medium latte." And at this point, there are like 10 people looking around. And I just did this awkward half raise of my hand like, I think that might be me.
Oh no, Eva, that's brilliant.
And then, okay, this is the best part. I walk up to grab it, and the cup says Ava. Not even Eva anymore. Ava. So within about 30 seconds, my name changed 3 times. Eva, Eva, Ava. It was like an identity crisis in a cup.
That is genuinely incredible. I love that. 3 names, 1 latte.
Exactly. And you know what? The coffee was delicious, so I forgive her completely. What about you? How was your morning?
My morning was chaotic. So I set 2 alarms last night, right? Because I had an early call. 2 alarms. And somehow I slept through both of them. I don't even know how that's physically possible.
James, 2 alarms?
I know. So I wake up and I'm already late and I'm doing everything in fast forward. Shower, clothes, grabbing my bag, and I make it to my coffee shop and I'm so frazzled that when the guy at the counter asked me what I wanted, I completely blanked, like my brain just left the building.
What did you order?
I ordered a green tea. I don't even like green tea that much. I just panicked and said the first thing that came to mind. So I walked in here half asleep holding a green tea like some kind of confused philosopher.
A confused philosopher. I love that. Okay, so between my triple identity crisis and your accidental green tea, I think we've already established that today is one of those days.
One of those days for sure. But honestly, I kind of love days like this because something always comes out of the chaos, you know? Like the unexpected stuff is where life gets interesting.
Oh, that is such a perfect segue into what we're actually talking about today, because today's topic is all about jumping into the unexpected. We're talking about stopping the waiting game when it comes to speaking English.
Yes, stop waiting and start speaking. This is such an important one. And I feel like every single person learning a language can relate to this. That feeling of, I'm not ready yet. Maybe after a few more lessons. Maybe when my grammar's better. Maybe when I know more vocabulary.
Right, the "when I'm ready" trap. And here's the thing, that moment of being ready, for a lot of people, it never actually comes, because the brain is really clever at finding new reasons to wait.
Totally. And I think it comes from this deeply ingrained idea that you need to be perfect before you perform. Like in school, if you gave the wrong answer, you felt embarrassed in front of everyone. So your brain learned, be careful, be sure, or stay silent.
And that instinct made total sense in a classroom with a grade attached to it. But speaking a language in real life is completely different. No one is grading you. No one is sitting there with a red pen.
Exactly. And the real irony is that the mistakes, the actual errors you make when you speak, those are literally how the brain learns language. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Can you say more about that? Because I think some people hear mistakes are good, and they think it's just something teachers say to make you feel better. But there's actually something real going on neurologically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you make a mistake and then you get corrected, either by someone else or you notice it yourself, your brain forms a much stronger memory around that moment than if you just read the correct form in a textbook. The emotion attached to it, the slight discomfort, the surprise, that actually helps the information stick.
That makes so much sense. I mean, think about it. You never forget the moments where something went wrong. Those are the stories you tell years later. Which brings up the other big thing I want to push back on a little, this idea that textbook study is a substitute for real conversation. Because I see so many learners who are incredible at reading and writing English, but then freeze up the moment they actually have to talk to someone.
Oh, 100%. And it's not that textbooks are bad. They give you a foundation. They're useful. But language is fundamentally a social skill. It lives in real time, with real pressure, with real unpredictability. And the only way to get comfortable with that is to actually do it.
Yeah, you can't get good at swimming by reading about swimming. At some point, you have to get in the water, even if it's a little scary at first.
Perfect analogy. And the water is rarely as cold as you think it's going to be.
Usually, yeah. Okay, so speaking of getting in over your head, we're going to share some personal stories in a second because I think nothing drives a point home like a real experience. And I have a very embarrassing one ready to go.
I've been looking forward to this.
Okay, so this happened a few years ago. I was visiting family in France, and my French is intermediate, let's say. I can hold a conversation, I can get around, but I'm definitely not fluent. So we go to this really nice dinner, a proper sit-down restaurant, and one of my cousins brings a friend who only speaks French, no English at all.
Okay, I already feel the pressure building.
Right? So everyone's chatting away, and I'm doing okay, following along, throwing in comments here and there. And then this friend, her name was Celine, she asks me something, and I understand most of it, but not the last word. And instead of saying, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" I just guessed. I said yes, and nodded confidently.
Oh no. What has she asked?
She had asked if I was allergic to shellfish because the waiter was about to bring out a shared platter of mussels, and she was checking if I was okay to eat them. And I said yes, meaning yes, I have an allergy, when actually I meant yes, I'm fine.
Oh, Eva. Oh, that is bad. What happened?
So Celine very kindly told the waiter that I had an allergy, and they immediately started this whole process. The manager came over, they were going to make me a separate dish. Everyone was very concerned and apologetic, and I'm sitting there completely confused at first, and then slowly, it dawns on me what I've done.
How long did it take you to realize?
About 2 minutes, which felt like 2 years. And then I had to confess to the whole table that no, I am not allergic to shellfish. I just got confused and nodded like an overconfident bobblehead. Everyone burst out laughing, including the manager, thankfully. But oh, my face was so red.
That is a genuinely great story. And honestly, I think a lot of our listeners have been in that exact position in a different language. That moment where you're nodding along, hoping for the best.
100%. The nod of false confidence. But here's the thing. After that dinner, I was actually less afraid of making mistakes because the worst had happened, kind of, and everyone just laughed and moved on. It didn't ruin the evening. The mussels were amazing, by the way.
And that's kind of the whole point, isn't it? The thing you're afraid of almost never results in disaster. Okay, my story. Mine is a little different. It's less of an embarrassing moment and more of a turning point.
Ooh, tell me everything.
So I studied Spanish in school for about 4 years. 4 years. And at the end of those 4 years, I could conjugate verbs like nobody's business. I knew my irregular past tenses. I knew subjunctive clauses. On paper, I looked like a competent Spanish speaker. But in real life, I had never actually had a real conversation with a real Spanish speaker. Not one.
4 years and no real conversations?
Whoa, I know. So I went on a trip to Mexico City with a friend. And on our first night, we ended up at this tiny local restaurant. No English menu, no English-speaking staff. And I remember standing there, all my textbook knowledge firing off in my head, and I was paralyzed. Like every sentence I tried to form, I immediately second-guessed. I kept thinking, is that the right conjugation? Should I use said or estar here? Is my accent offending anyone?
The internal grammar debate. That's so real.
So I just kind of pointed at the menu and smiled, and the waiter was very patient. But I left that restaurant feeling defeated. Like, what was the point of all those classes? And the next morning, and this was a turning point, I was at a market and a vendor started chatting with me. He thought I was a local for some reason, and he just started talking. Fast, cheerful, totally relaxed.
What did you do?
I just replied without thinking. I didn't have time to plan a sentence. I didn't have time to worry about conjugation. He asked me where I was from, and I just said it. And then he laughed and asked something else, and I answered that too. It was broken, it was imperfect, I definitely mixed up some words, but it was a conversation, a real one.
And how did that feel?
Incredible, genuinely incredible. Like this door just opened. And I realized that all that time I had spent analyzing and second guessing was the thing that was holding me back. Not my actual Spanish, because the knowledge was in there. I just needed to get out of my own way and let it out.
I love that. Get out of your own way. That's really the core of it, isn't it? And from that day on, how did your Spanish change?
Night and day. I spent the rest of that trip just talking to people, badly, imperfectly, with mistakes everywhere. And by the end of the week, I was having actual back and forth conversations about real things, not just ordering food. In 1 week of real conversation, I learned more than in 2 years of classroom study.
That is such a powerful story. And honestly, I think that experience is available to anyone who just decides to take the plunge. Oh, and speaking of take the plunge, that is actually the first phrase we want to break down for you today.
Yes, vocabulary time. So, take the plunge. This is a really common English idiom. When you take the plunge, you decide to do something bold or scary, something you've been hesitating about. You just go for it.
Think about it visually. You're standing at the edge of a diving board, looking down at the water, nervous. And then you jump. You take the plunge. So, for example, I was nervous about speaking English at work, but I finally took the plunge and joined the conversation. You can use it for any big decision, starting a business, moving to a new city, asking someone on a date.
Perfect. And along the same lines, we have bite the bullet. This one is about doing something difficult or painful that you know you can't avoid. You stop putting it off and you just do it, even though it's uncomfortable.
Right. And the origin of this phrase is actually pretty vivid. It goes back to old-fashioned surgery where there was no anesthesia, so soldiers would bite down on a bullet to deal with the pain. Yikes. These days, it just means toughing something out. Like, I kept putting off practicing my English pronunciation, but I finally bit the bullet and recorded myself speaking out loud.
I love that example because recording yourself is one of the most effective things you can do and also one of the things people resist the most. Okay, next one. Throw caution to the wind. Eva, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So, throw caution to the wind means to act boldly without worrying about the risks. You're letting go of your fears and just going for it, freely, without holding back. So you might say, she threw caution to the wind and started speaking English with the locals, even though she'd only been studying for a month. It has this liberating, adventurous energy to it.
And that energy is so important when learning a language. Okay, now here's one that we really want every listener to write down. Perfect is the enemy of good. This is less of an idiom and more of a proverb, but it is so relevant to language learning.
What this means is that if you wait until something is perfect, you often end up doing nothing at all, because perfect is unreachable. So good, meaning good enough, functional, effective, is actually better than waiting forever for perfect. In language terms, a good, imperfect conversation you actually have beats the perfect conversation you only have in your head.
Exactly. Perfect is the enemy of good. Say it out loud, write it on a sticky note, put it on your bathroom mirror. Next up, learning curve. This one comes up a lot.
A learning curve refers to the process of learning something new, especially when it starts out difficult but gets easier over time. Imagine a graph. The curve starts steep and challenging, then gradually levels out as you get better. So you might say there's definitely a learning curve when it comes to speaking English naturally, but once you get past the first few weeks, it starts to flow.
And then we've got in over your head. This is a fun one. It means being in a situation that is more difficult than you can handle. Like you've gotten yourself into something that's way too deep, too complicated, too overwhelming.
Like when you join an advanced English conversation group before you're quite ready, and everyone is speaking so fast you have absolutely no idea what's happening. You are in over your head. But, and here's the thing, being in over your head is also where growth happens fastest. You adapt, you push, you learn.
That's such a good point. Uncomfortable situations are often the ones that move you forward the most. All right, let's bring it home. Recap time. The 3 big takeaways from today's episode.
Okay, number 1, start before you feel ready. And I know that sounds scary, but here's the truth. No one ever feels fully ready. Readiness isn't a destination you arrive at. It's something that grows as you go. The act of starting is what creates the readiness. So take the plunge, throw caution to the wind, bite the bullet, pick your idiom. Just start.
Love it. Number 2, mistakes are your best teachers. This is not just a feel-good saying. It is literally how the brain encodes language. Every mistake is data. Every awkward moment is a memory that sticks. Every correction is progress. Stop treating errors as failures and start treating them as feedback.
Yes, and number 3, real conversation beats passive study every single time. Reading textbooks, watching videos, doing exercises, all useful, but none of it replaces actually opening your mouth and talking to a real person in real time. That's where the magic happens, even if it's messy, especially if it's messy.
Perfect is the enemy of good, right? To all our listeners, if you take one thing from today, let it be this. You are ready enough. Right now, your English is good enough to start. Find a conversation partner, join an online group, talk to yourself in the mirror. Whatever works, just get speaking.
And on that note, thank you so much for spending this time with us today. This is what the English Coffee Talk Show is all about. Real talk, real stories, real English. We love having you here.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave us a review. It really does help us grow and reach more people who are on this English learning journey. Every review means the world to us.
And hey, go have a conversation today. Even a small one, even a weird one, even one where you accidentally claim to have a shellfish allergy when you don't. It's all part of the journey.
We'll never let that one go, Eva. All right, everyone, until next time, keep talking, keep growing, and we'll see you back here with more coffee and more English.
Bye!
See you next time.